Welcome back, dear viewers. You're still watching The Breakfast Show live on Nile TV International. And as promised, we're going to be tackling the economic importance of small, medium, and micro enterprises. And for today, we're most delighted to be joined by our dear guest here in the studio, Mr. Abdul Latif Wahba, an Egyptian journalist. First of all, good morning, sir, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Mr. Wahba. And let's first define for our viewers the grave importance of small and medium enterprises. How important is it in building countries' economies? And there is very successful experiences for other booming economies that had built its empire over the small economies like the small and medium enterprises.
As you know that the small and medium enterprises and micro economies may be tool for the Egyptian people and also for the Egyptian government to alleviate some burdens from the public budget. And if we compare the situations in Egypt and some huge economy in the world, for example, like India, like Germany, like China, we will find now they are depending upon the small and the medium enterprises in their local industries, as it played an important role also at the logistic areas for the huge industries, for the big factories and so on. This is from one hand. On the other hand, played also an important role in increasing its export to world or to the other markets. If we discussed, for example, Germany, they are depending just now upon the small and the medium enterprises in their foreign trade. They don't depend completely upon the huge companies in their markets, but now they use the small and the medium enterprises in increasing its exports to the other markets. In Egypt, they are trying to imply the same policy in Egypt. As you know that Mustafa Madbouli, who came to power as the prime minister, he presented a 4-year policy program to promote the small and medium and the macro economies in the Egyptian markets. And at the same time, he presented some incentives for the small projects, especially for women. This is, of course, to face and to overcome the unemployment rate in Egypt, to improve the standard of life, to create new jobs at the same time. This is, of course, the policy just now. And at the same time, they presented many incentives for the small and the medium and the enterprises, like when they decided to allocate about 10% from the available land for the small projects and for the young people, and to create their factories and so on.
Also, Mr. Abdul Latif, if you can tell us, how do you see the keenness of the Egyptian state to encourage youth to start their own projects?
Of course, as concerning this, the medium and the small enterprises, I think just now we have many initiatives, for example, from the central bank itself and from the government. The government, as I said, allocated 10% of from the available land for the small and the medium projects. projects, our enterprises, and at the same time we have another initiatives from the central bank since 2016 when allocated 200 billion Egyptian pound in banks to disperse it for the people, for the young people and youths to create their jobs. This is, of course, will help in Egyptian economy, even in as a feeding for the logistic areas, for the big factories and the companies working in Egypt, and at the same time, I think, as Madbouli policy, to present some incentives in helping them in export their goods and so on for the African countries, for the Arab countries. And so.
Tell us about the initiative, your idea, your company. That is is becoming very popular, and it is acting as amongst, of course, as we all know, to enforce the micro and small economies inside the country with the startups, also startup companies. Your company, your idea, or your idea, your company. What is the idea behind this particular project, and how is it working to empower the Egyptian youth?
This, of course, will open the negotiations about the central entity for the small and the medium projects in Egypt. I think it is a good initiative from Ministry of Investment and International Cooperations. Presented many initiatives. One of them is your idea, is your company. This is, of course, allocated also some incentives for the youths, for the young people to create their company, and depending upon the facilities the ministry presented for them concerning how to establish it, how to get the license and so on, and also how can you get the fund from the Egyptian banks according to the central bank initiatives and also the government initiatives. But the progress and the development of the small and the medium enterprises in Egypt just now not depending upon the fund. It is available for anyone, but I think it is to some extent hard for the users to meet the demands to get this fund. I think create. Because the ministry, for example, Ministry of Supply and Home Trade has some initiatives, and at the same time, the Ministry of International Cooperations and Investment has another initiatives. Ministry of Industry and Foreign Trade, I think, creating a central body for the small and medium enterprises will help because it will unify all the rules and the procedures for the users to get the fund.
Also, Mr. Abdul Latif, if you can tell us how do such initiatives are supported to highlight or to support directly the micro, small and medium enterprise?
Yeah, of course, as you know, the government allocated 10 billion for 10 billion Egyptian pound for the small and medium enterprises, but in some provinces they according to the government regulations and so on, they have to choose some industries or some fabrications to be a support for the logistic areas. For example, in Upper Egypt, they created many industrial zone in Minya, in Sohag, in Asyut, and so so on. And at the same time, they permit for the people and allocated for them the area and the land for the young people to create a job or factories or a small enterprises connected with the logistic and the industrial zone to be a feeding for them for some services.
The investment law was reformed a while ago, and some changes were taken in order to facilitate the investment, foreign investment in particular process. Talk to us about that particular step, important step, and how is it important to boost the new economic plan, especially empower small and medium enterprises.
Of course, as you know that Egypt amended and created a new law for the investment in Egypt, depending upon presenting some incentives for the foreign direct investment in Egypt, even for the Egyptian investor at the same time, as they are targeting to attract over than 10 billion US dollars. We suffered during the last years from decreasing the of the foreign direct investment in Egypt. This is of course before 2013, and we suffered from lack of electricity, of power, energy, of transportations, of roads, of many utilities suffered during this period. But after the economic reform program and after issuing the unified law for the investment in Egypt, they presented many incentives for foreign direct investment, especially who want to invest in Upper Egypt, and at the same time for the companies already working in Egypt, if they wanted to increase their investment, we give them incentives concerning taxes, for example, concerning facilities in allocating the land for new extensions, and at the same time, as you know, that we created a body for the economic zone in Suez Canal corridor. This is of course will help and will attract all the many foreign companies to work in Egypt. But as you know, in Upper Egypt and for the small and the medium enterprises, especially the government presented a new fund, especially for the young people in Upper Egypt, especially in rural provinces and areas. This is of course to empower women. At the same time, they are targeting to create about 20,000 jobs in during the 4 years, and the central bank initiative itself aims to create about 350,000 jobs in coming 4 years at the same time. This is of course will help the young people not to depend upon the government in trying to matriculate to any jobs and the governmental jobs and so on. This will create at the same time a new youth for have a special characteristics in establishing their own business in Egypt. I think this is important for the users just now.
Also, Mr. Abdul, how do you see the role of the Egyptian company for entrepreneurship and investment?
Now there is a competition between the Egyptian companies and the foreign companies working in Egypt, especially in expanding their investment. Now we are not depending only upon the international companies in coming to Egypt, but if the government, for example, wanted to establish or to push any new projects, they offered tenders for the Egyptian companies and for the foreign companies with the same equality and transparency between for all. We didn't want to repeat what happened during the last decades when we discriminate the foreign investors from the Egyptian or the Arab investors. I think now the climate is suitable for all, for the Egyptian, for the Arab, for the foreign investor to work in Egypt and the foreign companies.
Yes.
The importance of linking entrepreneurship and different economic bodies and sectors in the government.
Yeah.
Of course, it has an implication and it has a power of enforcement.
Yeah.
Either to the citizens who are starting their own businesses or the youth, or supporting women, sectors like women who are starting their own businesses, several sectors in society.
I think now some suffered from discriminations between how to tackle with all problems they face. There is a competitions or an equal competitions between the formal companies, and the small and the medium enterprises working in grey economy. They must, I think, the government itself has an initiative to attract the grey economy to be formal economy with some incentives concerning insurance, social insurance, concerning taxes and so on.
Yes. Just to recap, Mr. Abdul Latif, your comments to the progress of the economic development in Egypt as we're wrapping up this segment.
As you know that I think many international institutions like the World Bank and the IMF praise the Egyptian economic reform program that implied during the last 4 years. We achieved, I think, over 5.6% as gross domestic product. We decreased the unemployment rate in Egypt according to the last statistics from the CAPMAS. It is about 7.5% from 14%. And at the same time, the inflation in Egypt also decreased to 1 digit. I think it is less than 8% according to the central bank. I mean the core inflations. The foreign reserve increased to $45 billion compared to 14 before 2013. I think this is a progress for the Egyptian economy. That means the Egyptian economy is on the right track.
Thank you. Mr. Abdul Latif Wahba, Egyptian journalist, as always, we really do appreciate your insights and your presence on The Breakfast Show.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
And dear viewers, now we move on to a short break and then we'll be back to resume the remaining segments of The Breakfast Show live on Nile TV International.